Good evening, members. Welcome to this evening's Councillor Conduct Committee, Wednesday the 21st of February at 6 p.m. Is there any apologies for absence? Councillor Hamilton.
Councillor Luella Prenter, I'm subbing for her.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hamilton. Can I ask members to approve the record of the meeting held on the 15th of March and the record of the meeting of the joint meeting of committees held on the 24th of May 2023? Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. I have no urgent matters by reason of special circumstances. Are there any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests or other significant interests on this agenda this evening? None? Okay, so I'm handing over for the report on the disclosure and barring checks for councillors. Mr. Gill.
Thank you, Chair. Members, you have before you a report, and I'm sure that you've all had the opportunity to read it and digest it. I won't spend too long in terms of the introduction. However, you've got three recommendations in front of you. They're listed in paragraph 1.1, subparagraphs 1, 2 and 3, and they recommend that this authority start to conduct enhanced disclosure and barring checks on all councillors that are appointed to relevant member bodies, that this committee approve a list of relevant bodies or committees that's set out in paragraph 3.9, and further that you delegate authority to me in consultation with the Leader of the Council and the Director of People and the Deputy Chief Exec to periodically review that list of approved committees and update them. These recommendations and the report flow from a letter that the Leader of the Council received a short while ago from the Minister for Local Government, setting out the findings of a review that was conducted by Mr. Simon Bailey, and that reported on the 18th of April 2023. The detailed findings of that review into the local authority checks is set out in paragraph 3.3 of the report, and what Mr. Bailey found was that there was a lack of consistency across local authorities when members were undertaking their role as a corporate parent, and whether appropriate checks on the DBS system were undertaken or not. So the Minister for Local Government wrote on the 18th of January this year recommending that local authorities who have such committees undertake those checks as a matter of best practice, whilst he, through his department, is undertaking and making sure that relevant legislation is brought into force that makes those checks mandatory. At the moment, we don't know what that draft legislation is going to say, so there may be some changes that result as a result of that legislation. However, what I've suggested is that we adopt a protocol which is set out in paragraph 3.8 of the report, where we've got members appointed to the approved committees or panels, that we undertake checks. The results of those are shared with the relevant group whip and the member. Where those checks have been undertaken, the member agrees to undertake no further participation in those committees until the checks are received back. And if there is anything unsatisfactory that's revealed as part of those checks, the group whip will inform the Chief Executive and myself within 14 days of a replacement member for those committees. I have shared a copy of the draft report with all relevant group whips. All of them came back to me supportive of the suggestions. I know that some of the members may be absent due to traffic conditions outside, so just to report that back to here. And there are some financial implications which are set out at the bottom of the report, but as the Minister for Local Government has suggested, and I agree, this would be good practice to adopt, irrespective of the mandatory legislation due to come out, and the costs are relatively modest, and we will accommodate those within the budget for member services. Thank you, Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rupinder. Councillor Aircraft-Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for this report. To be honest, I think it's a common sense and, you know, safeguarding should underpin everything we do. I do think we've missed transport and appeals purely because those meetings, there are sometimes children that can come with their parents, and some foster children have been on there as well, but I don't know if that's covered anywhere else.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take that suggestion back and consult with the Director for People and see what her view is, and also with the leader. If they are both in agreement and think that that is appropriate, then I'm more than happy to exercise the discretion and the delegation, if that's approved in a few minutes, to add that to the list.
Thank you, sir. I think maybe because they're accompanied by an adult, that might not be a reason, but actually, I just think while we're doing this, we might as well do a belt and braces job.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. Just got a couple of comments to make. I'm extremely pleased to see that we're aiming for best practice here. I think it's a little overdue in terms of ensuring that when we're interacting with vulnerable adults and children, that we are guaranteed that everybody has passed an enhanced DBS check. I don't think that we have anything to hide, and the more transparency we have, the better. I've got a couple more comments and a few questions. Agree there needs to be uniform across the board, so it's good that we would be spearheading this. I have a question about how many councillors will be covered by this. Given that we are subbing, we will be including subs. Is there not a merit in ensuring that all councillors have an enhanced DBS check? Because in our day-to-day duties as councillors, we do interact with vulnerable adults and children in other areas of the work that we do, and I think it would send a really good and strong signal that all councillors volunteer to undergo an enhanced DBS check. And I'm just checking, I'm still getting the hang of the post-it notes. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Rupinder.
So, in terms of substitutes, at the moment, the Constitution as it's drafted allows for any member of the Council to substitute for another, provided appropriate notice is given into democratic services. So there is clearly that obligation at the moment that we would probably need to undertake this check for all elected members. However, should members decide to change the rules in relation to substitution, then obviously we would follow whatever the new rules are. Clearly there's a financial implication to this, and far be it for me to exaggerate or stress the point, but we do have some financial challenges at the moment as a local authority, and I would certainly not wish to undertake checks that we deemed were not absolutely necessary, but you as a committee may well determine that actually we ought to have these checks on all elected members as soon as they are elected, and therefore that then gives you the freedom and the ability, and particularly to the group whips, to consider their nominations for particular committees in advance rather than to have it chase those later.
Councillor Hamilton, do you want to come back?
I completely agree that we have challenging financial circumstances, but I think given the financial implications of all councillors being able to undergo an enhanced DBS check is minimal compared to the risks or potential risks in terms of safeguarding for vulnerable adults and children, and I think that should be the imperative that we work towards.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Maritime.
Thank you, Chair. First question is in regards to the financial implications. Have we had any indication that at some point DLUC would be prepared to pick up the bill for this when it goes through Parliament?
All that we received is the letter, which is included in the appendices. My suspicion is that the response will be that this is all part and part of the general settlement that the local authorities receive. I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And then the second question is in regards to, I mean, I kind of echo the points that have been made, that I think we should all go through it just from the point of view that you might even have a set of people that are the substitutes for a committee, but you've still no guarantee that they're around and going to be available. Presumably, if a councillor has already got an enhanced DBS check and can prove this, that could be a way of, in theory, saving the council some money. So that's one point. And then the second point is, if an enhanced DBS check, for example, brings out somebody's been done for, I don't know, speeding or something like that, is that something that's going to preclude somebody from being able to sit on a committee? Because I would have thought certain offences, for obvious reasons, should be the thing that should preclude you from being on a committee rather than unrelated offences. So, in two questions in the order that you asked them, where members who've already got checks, and effectively the legislation and the guidance talks of them as kind of passports, and you can take them with you, then certainly we would ask those questions first and be able to use those where we can, and only when we can't, then we commission our own checks. And secondly, in relation to relevant convictions, absolutely, we would want to make sure that we only take into account those matters that are disclosed that are potentially relevant to the role that they undertake, as opposed to anything more general that has absolutely no bearing on what they're doing within their role. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elcroft-Scott, do you want to come back?
Yes, I kind of am worried from the financial aspect, but I do think what price is safeguarding children and vulnerable adults, and I don't think there is a price. Certainly from my head teacher perspective, we've been doing this in schools since 2002, and nobody is unsupervised with children unless they have one. So I just think for the safety of our whole community, it is worth doing it. But I would like us to try and recoup the money from the government, because actually this should not be on the shoulders of the local authority, especially when we're in, as lots of local authorities are, underfunded and struggling to make the budget balance.
Thank you. What I can do is, if members are agreeable, we can have an additional recommendation that this committee requests the chair to write to the Secretary of State, requesting them to make sure that local authorities are appropriately funded for undertaking these checks, and I'll undertake to draft a suitable letter for the chair to check before it goes off.
Fantastic. They're not incredibly expensive. They're about £65.
Thank you, Councillor Elcroft-Scott. I agree, really. I think the members have brought up some really good points. I think the subs would be an issue if you were short and they didn't have the DBSs. I think that would be a difficult one. I do think that the current DBSs are a good thing, though, Bhupinder, because there are many councillors that are chairs of academy trusts. They have minister-signed off enhanced DBSs. So, things like that I think we should make the best of. As long as they're up to date, we should make the best of those if it means saving the money. I suppose the only comment for me is about those coming in to be councillors. It's got to be at the front door, hasn't it? We've got to make it very clear as a council, but I suppose also parties have got to make it very clear as well that those coming into to probably by then, those coming in will have to be DBS'd. And I'm the same as, Councillor Hamilton and everyone else here. I think it's something we should have been doing a long time ago anyway. It would have saved us a lot of problems. Okay, is it okay, Teri, for me to do the recommendation rather than put it on everybody else with the comments here? So the committee's requested, the committee are requested to approve the recommendations 1.1, 1.12 and 1.13. We're also going to ask Mr. Gill to do an inquiry around the Transport Committee and whether they should be DBS'd as well. We've also got the additional recommendation that the Chair writes to the Secretary of State around the cost of this DBS procedure. And Mr. Gill, there's just one part I'm trying to work out. It's about the whole council approach. Do we need to put that in as a recommendation, or an extra one, or are we sticking with what you've got here for the time being?
Through you, Chair, 1.1 already states that it's inclusive of subs, and the Constitution states that any member can be a sub, so they're covered.
Perfect. So we don't have to add on any extra on that. Okay. Is that seconded?
Councillor MacDonald, could I just add education and transport appeals? Thank you, sir.
Is that okay? Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Seconded and agreed? Agreed. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much for that. Now moving on to agenda item 6. Over to you again, Mr. Gill. Review of ethical framework.
Thank you, Chair. There's 2 recommendations on the report. At the front, one, that the committee notes a review that I'm proposing to undertake during the course of this calendar year. And secondly, that I request that the relevant political group whips inform me of their nominees to participate in an informal working group. The Council's constitution contains the main body of rules relating to how we conduct ourselves in public offices, and also the rules relating to who can make decisions and how we go about making decisions. The ethical framework, as it's collectively known, consists of a number of different protocols or codes or policies that we have, and I've set those out in paragraph 3.5. And in relation to members, they include the Members' Code of Conduct, the Protocol on Member/Employee Relations, the Members' Planning Code of Good Practice, and the Members' Licensing Code of Good Practice. These documents have not been reviewed in a while, and speaking with colleagues, I understand that these were first adopted back in late 2017 and approved by the Council in 2018. So it's been a while since there was a fundamental review of these documents, and following the all-out elections that we had last year, we've had a significant influx of new members to the Council, approximately 50%. And having been in office now for approaching the best part of 8-9 months, they will have encountered those codes. They will have had experience of living with them, trying to interpret them and to apply them. And therefore, I think it is appropriate that we undertake a review to make sure that those codes remain fit for purpose. And if there are any changes that we need to make, we will have sufficient time to make those during the tenure of everybody's office. There is no recommended period in order for these matters to be reviewed, but I think now is an apt time in order to undertake that review, and therefore I look forward to receiving nominations from group whips so that we can do a collaborative piece of work, cross-party, and come to some firm recommendations, whether those are to stay as we are or to implement any changes. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Just a quick one on the time frames. Are we hoping to do it in the next municipal year, or from May onwards, this task group? When are we thinking of starting the task group?
Due to a number of factors, including my own absences on holiday in the next month or so, I'm suggesting that we perhaps wait until May to commence work on this, because I understand there is a separate piece of work
already looking at making some changes to the members' planning code of good practice. I would not want to stall that good work that's already ongoing, rather build upon it. So we'll wait to see what changes that are member-driven come out of that, and then we'll work with those in relation to any changes. But certainly in terms of the members' code of conduct, I'd probably want to start work on that first. So probably starting on that in around May, and then perhaps have meetings once a month to allow any work behind the scenes and any changes. But I'd certainly want to then conclude this piece of work, certainly no later than late autumn. So certainly concluding well within this calendar year.
Thanks, Rupinder. That's a bit reassuring, because I think there's quite a lot on in, coming up to May. Councillor Howcroft-Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Social media and the plethora of forums is missing. Is that an oversight, or because I just worry about the the access to social media and the length of online abuse that sometimes occurs, mainly misogyny in my opinion, but that's missing. Just wondered why.
So what I'll be proposing to do is, when we're reviewing the code of conduct, at the moment that is silent in terms of how members use the social media, and if members are supportive, I'm pretty sure that we will end up with some recommendations as to how members use social media and the language and any breaches that may result as a result of their use. Members have a few minutes ago just approved the minutes from a previous Councillor Conduct Committee that took place several months ago, and you will note that that was in relation to a former member and their use of social media and comments that they posted on that. So I do think it would be appropriate, but ultimately it's a matter for members to determine as to whether they want something in the code of conduct on that.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I have to say I'm completely on board with this. I think particularly because we've got a new set of members, and I think talking to Conservatives as well, I know, and actually Independents, I know that certainly it's become a learning curve for a lot of people as being a councillor in all sorts of ways, in particular in regards to a lot of things like the code of conduct. And I think in particular, I think it's very much valid and is needed when it comes to member-employee relations, because I've seen from a number of examples of councillors naming officers. I don't know what the view is in regards to that. I know certainly, that has occurred where an officer has been named personally in a meeting and that officer isn't there. I don't know whether that would necessarily be covered, but I think it's definitely something that needs to be addressed. And I think clearer guidance on that, I think, would be appreciated by all concerned, both councillors and officers.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. Anything to feedback on it? Okay, thank you. I mean, thank you for the comments. I do think the social media element does need to be added in there. I think Rupinder, I think, over the years it has come up quite a lot. So I think it's, and we are in this world now of more social media and the way that councillors operate very differently to what they may have done 20 years ago even. So, okay, members, thank you so much for, sorry, Councillor Hamilton, sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. I was weaving, but you were on a roll. Yeah, I just want to echo Councillor Howcroft-Scott's comments about misogyny. And I think it's absolutely critical that that's looked at in terms of the review moving forward. Again, social media and the pace of digital technologies and the impact that has in terms of councillor conduct, also would like to flag that. And finally, I'd like to raise my concerns that it's been 7 years since this has been looked at, and as part of the recommendations, could we build in that at least once every 4 years this is automatically reviewed moving forward in terms of improving our practices around this?
I think a regular review is important. I would want to make sure that when we are timing those reviews, it should be no more than, so it's looked at no more than 4 years, but also I would want to build that into the electoral cycle so that we're not looking at a review immediately post-elections, but similar to the cycle that we're at now, that there is a suitable period of bedding down for new members to come in, have experience of it, and then they too can contribute to that review. So, but in principle, I have no objections to that and very supportive of that.
Thank you very much, members. So we've got recommendations here. So the committee requested to 1.1, note the review to be undertaken. 1.2, request that the political group whips inform the monitoring officer of their nominee for the informal working group. And I presume, Mr. Gill, you'd give them a deadline of doing that, by what time you'll need that over. And also to note the points, I will add the one extra, Bhupinder, to note the points made about misogyny, social media, and a regular review period to be put into that, but hopefully that will come out within that group anyway. Okay. Is that seconded, members? Seconded and agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, members. I think that is the end of our meeting this evening. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, members.